I work at a Big Four consulting firm based in Tokyo, and I'm doing something called Esports Advisory that I started about 2.5 years ago, and it's been a blast. And we roughly just to give you an overall idea, we consult companies to enter this new market called esports or gaming market, who has the interest, who has the appetite. We also help governments and to create their own public policy for the country, and also we are also part of the education that we teach at a university esports dedicated course.
So let me get this straight. You work at one of the big four consulting firms and you have managed to get them to pay you and consult to play games all day. That's what I'm
Yeah,
hearing.
exactly. Thanks for putting it very simply. Yeah, simply put, that's pretty much it. And I can buy games as work, pretty much.
Every guy listening to this is like, how do I get this? So talk to me more about this, Baro, because, one of the big four doesn't let you play games all day unless there is some business behind this.
Right.
How is there big business behind esports?
Right. So let me give you a little bit of background. So my personal background, my professional work I don't have a personal experience in a gaming industry. My background is in engineering. So before I joined this firm, I was doing R&D engineering for 10 years, and I was more into data analytics and more into AI. And so when I joined this firm, I joined as a tech consultant, and which makes sense. But then as I grew up as a gamer, and I originally from Korea, and I played a lot of Japanese video games, and now I live in Tokyo. I came here with a lot of expectation that esports should be really big. But to my surprise, that was back in 2017. It wasn't big at all. Although, Japan as a nation is such a big gaming nation, as everybody knows it. So I kind of found it kind of peculiar because where I grew up in South Korea, esports is really big, and that's where we started. So, this is kind of weird. So then I spoke to my boss back then, and then we found out that, this could be there could be a business, potential going on. So from there, it took about a year to actually make it as a service, as an advisory service, and we launched it in 2018. And to be honest, it kind of started off as a side project. I was doing a tech consultant full time, and then as a side project as esports. But then it kind of took off from there. So the following year, it really took up. So when I started, it was only me, but now I'm have a 6-member team just dedicated on esports. And we have clients. We've been recognized in the nation and outside of the nation. And we have books published here and there, and also articles. And so it's been growing from that timing, and it took about 2.5 years.
So your mission is to make sure that grown-ups realize that esports is business.
Exactly. So yeah, like esports is a real thing. And that's one of the things that I was finding really difficult to convince internally within the firm that I'm working, because when I first brought this up to the senior executives of my firm, like the CEO and CEO, all that, I was like, what are you trying to do here? I'm trying to play games in the firm. That's what they said, but that's not what I'm trying to do. I have the interest, of course, but that's not what I'm trying to get at.
Oh, no, that's brilliant. So talk to me more about how esports are big business, though, because you're basically saying to me that someone playing a game has the same earning potential as someone who plays, say, soccer or rugby, etc.
Yes, exactly. So it's very easy to understand if you think of traditional sports, as you said. So it's pretty much the same thing, but just that it's with playing games. So esports, in a nutshell, is about competitive gaming. So you're playing games online. That could be a team play or a single play, but you're playing competitively. And what's interesting is that that as a viewing content is fun to watch. So just like professional sports, right? So if you're playing football or baseball or basketball, if it's a professional scene, it's fun to watch because they're playing so well, and there's stories behind it. There's a reason why this team has to win. And so it's that viewing content that really took this industry to sustainable. And then we have professional esports players, just like professional traditional sports players, and they if you're in a good team, if you're good, they earn a lot of money. There's tournaments around the world that has prize money like right now is order of $1 million. So
Wow.
yeah, and so it's already a huge industry. And for example, like the top esports professional teams, there was a list, given by Forbes end of last year, and the top team is worth about 450 million US dollars right now.
450 million.
Yeah.
But when these people are playing, are they playing at home or are they having to go somewhere to play?
So it's case by case. If you're professional, usually, so just imagine like traditional sports team. If you're a soccer team, you have a camp, you have your team facility.
Yeah.
Same. So you have your esports team facility, and people practice there. Like you are dedicated your time there. So one thing is that once you start playing professionally, you're no longer playing for fun for yourself. You're playing to win, and it involves a lot of tactics and strategies, and you have to think. It takes a lot of training, and it takes a lot of commitment and resources. And if the team does not provide that, you cannot win. So it's the same operation, just like in traditional sports. So if it's a good team, you have a very good, like operational model going on as in the facility.
So individual players would have sponsors. Are they seeking sponsors the same way that an athlete would?
Yeah, totally. So they have sponsors. So sponsorship is probably the largest. It is the largest source of income for the teams. But if you actually look into the actual, the revenue, the inside the revenue, it's very similar to traditional sports. So there's sponsorship, which is the largest one.
Yeah.
And you have the broadcasting rights, you have the advertisement, you have the goods, you have the tickets, and you also have the game publisher rights.
So you'll have people. So you'll have somewhere where you're actually playing these games, but your opponent might not be in the same room as you. They might be in a different country.
Right. So that's normally how it is with games right nowadays. Everything is online, so you can be anywhere in the world. But if it's a professional setup, by the way, so before COVID, normally if it's a very very important league, like they get it up offline. So they get it up in a stadium, and tens of thousands of people get it up to watch that, just like a traditional sports, and they play offline.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it's it's about 30,000 people get up in the stadium, just like traditional sport. But at the same time, like the live online video stream that happens, there are millions of people watching around the world through YouTube or Facebook or Twitch.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So when you say that they're playing offline, is that because so they can make sure that they've got the right connection? Because I have heard of people here saying that our connections aren't good enough to be able to play some games. Is that why?
Right. So part of the reason is that exactly that. So there's a communication issue, and it's happening in online games. So it depends. So it's all about the server, where the server is. And if you're remotely, say if you're playing from this North America and I'm playing from Japan, if we're in a different server, it's not going to work out, and there's going to be a delay, etc. So just to make sure that everybody in the same condition and the fair condition, and also if you can't see each other, they may be subject for cheating or something. So just to make sure that everybody's on the same fair environment.
Wow, that's incredible. Now, why are you so interested in this? Because you've actually written a book demystifying esports. So that's something you're passionate about. That's not just a daytime job. That's something you're obviously in.
Right. So it's a really good question. So I pretty much threw all my engineering career away for this, for this passion in esports and gaming. And it kind of started off as as I said, like as a business curiosity. There may be a business potential there, but then as I started out, I realized that this is just more than business. And for example, I have two kids, and they're 6 and 8 boys, and really crazy about game nowadays. And I connect with them through games. So as a father, so it to us is a communication tool, a very valid communication tool. But not only that, like as I read it in my book, but we also have organize an internal esports event at our firm, and and we do that on a regular basis. And what we found out is that it's also a very, very effective communication tool internally for in between employees. You get to meet new people, you get to know, what their strength and, their side of the story that I would have never known before I even started this. And and game itself, it may started as a personal entertainment and historically, and that's how people perceive it. But nowadays, with all this online and all the technological development going on, it's just so much more. I mean, there's you can education with that. I mean, it's just so many. It's very versatile subject that it's just not that just we didn't give much justice to it to in my perspective. So to me, it's a unsolved puzzle that is so much fun because as I study more, as I get to know about it, it keep on evolving, and there's just so much possibility, also in terms of business.
Oh yeah, completely. I mean, even if I look at marketing, gamification's massive. It's something
Oh yeah,
to hook us in. I mean, McDonald's does it very, very well every year with its Monopoly, for one instance, but lots of apps, etc., have gamification to keep you collecting and keep you coming back. So, it's part of day-to-day life for us.
absolutely, absolutely. And like over here in Japan, the good example is that there's example where they use it in the facility business, where the senior where seniors are staying. So you like average like age of that facility is probably 60, 70 above, and it's just a facility where the senior get together, but they use game and esports for creating community. So for example, like these like old, I don't know, for example, my grandpa, who's not interested in like interacting with people at all, but once you put a racing game there, and everybody knows how to drive, even if it's a virtual space, so they start playing games, and then some the other people gather up around you and start cheering you behind, and it's like they start to like it because it's you get that sense of community, and it kind of encouraged them to keep on coming out and associate with other people. Otherwise they could have been very single minded and just try to stay up at lock up in their room. So yeah, there's a
Yeah.
lot of positive aspect about it if you actually think about it.
So, how does it actually? I know there's a lot of concerns with parents with children that they don't want too much screen time. They want them outside doing like physical activity rather than sitting around, etc. How do you get that balance with esports so that esports aren't the only sports?
It's hard.
Yeah,
It's hard.
with
It's
two
hard.
boys, I'm sure you've got that.
It's hard, but like to me, like nowadays, I think I think when I grew up, it was pretty clear. Like there was a sports kid, and there were the gaming kids. It was a two like mutually exclusive group. But I
Mm.
think nowadays they're mixed. So it's the same kid may play hardcore basketball with their friends, but at the same time, on the weekends they may play hardcore like some Fortnite games with their friends online. So it's a content that they enjoy either on virtual or online or offline. So like once you have the perspective, like it's I mean, if you're not talking about like playing like say 10 hours a day, I mean that's probably off the scope. But as long as they keep their promises, and there's a way of communicating as a parent to your kids, I think it's not a problem whether they play a little more, a little shorter, because what happens often is that, like, at least it kind of relates to the reason why I wrote this book, is that like my parents' generation or my in-laws, they think that my for example, my mother-in-law still thinks that gaming is evil,
Yeah.
and part because my younger son plays too much, and it's understandable because she never played game in her life. So it's something that she would take it as that, okay, it's something that they can't get away of it, because it's just the content is too interesting, and most often or not, they forget about their homework, or for example, right?
Yeah.
So it's so naturally they associate some kind of negative connotation towards about esports. But I really wanted to break that, because it's not giving full justice the positivity of what gaming and esports could bring. So that's one of the reasons why I wrote that book.
So if well, just to compare with traditional sports as again,
Mm-hmm.
if I'm a very keen hockey player, but I'm never going to make it to nationals, I'm never going to make it to play for my country, etc. I'm never going to be able to play professionally, say. That'll be the same with a lot of esport players where they're very good, but they're just not going to be those $1 million players.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of careers are there for people who are really into esports but are not going to be top of the league?
Right, right. Actually, there are quite a few. There are quite a lot actually. So being a professional player, as you said, it's only too selected who is very gifted or very dedicated to actually reach that level, and you
Yeah.
also need that support. But another thing, so as so if you're so there's many routes actually. So let me put it this way: if you're interested in playing side and the gaming play, so there are actually two side of it that you can look into. So one is being good and beat your opponent. So that's about professional, being a professional player. One is about creating content. So nowadays YouTubers, so they're not necessarily a professional level, but they are playing and create fun contents for people to watch. And creating those professional contents may not necessarily align with your own own interests, but you as a professional, you're creating that content through games and esports. So that's another route. So that content creator. Another thing is that if you're really into hardcore part of esports, so just it's the same analogy with traditional sports. So often in tournaments and leagues, you have casters and commentators, just like you have in the traditional sports.
Yeah. Okay.
Which is very important because they are the ones who give the viewer the context, what's happening, and even if you don't fully understand what's going on, they will give a good explanation what kind of mindset that the players are going through, what skills what strategy that they're thinking. And so just like traditional sports, and so they're the storytellers, so those two are also very big. Another one is also a referee. Gaming referee is also a thing. So depending on there are so many different genres of games, and a different genre has different titles of games. So just like sports, right? So different games have different rules and regulations that you have to follow for the tournament, so that people can compete professionally. Because sometimes there's a lot on stake.
Yeah.
So yeah, so there's that. So that's really like or on the broadcasting side, as I said, the content creator, or if you're broadcasting for a production for say television, all those are different routes, careers. But not only in the esports side, you can also relate to gaming side. For example, a lot of the professional players, after their professional career, what they do, one thing they do is coaching.
Yeah,
So
I was going to say,
right.
they must have coaches as well.
Yeah. So these teams have professional coaches and directors, and you can be either coaching the strategy, or you can be the director who's actually taking care of the business side of it, and and running and operating the team so that they can be the top. Or you can. There are also cases where you can work for a gaming company afterwards, because a lot of these games, esports games, what's important is the fine-tuned balance between the game. So for example, if you have Mario and Luigi, and if you're like off balance when they're having battle, it's not going to work out as a competition. It's not going to be a fun competition. So it's a job of the engineers, it's a job of the game publisher, that to ascertain that this have a good balance, so that the game content is fun. And those also are a lot of it's a path for game professionals to go, at least in the case in Korea. And I can go on forever about this.
Yeah, there's so many jobs.
Yeah.
Everyone's taking note of how they can get into the gaming world now. That's brilliant. And I guess there's so many different things that would actually feed into that as well. I mean, I can see if anyone's watching this, as opposed to listening, you've got a gaming setup there behind you. You're sitting on a gaming chair. I've seen gaming tables, and like when I was setting up my my business and my desk, etc., the premium you pay for something that's a gaming chair or a gaming desk, which essentially looks quite similar to just a normal one, just a bit fancier looking, is massive. So it's big business. People will pay a premium for this.
Yeah, totally. Because gamers tend to play long hours, and they appreciate about that little extra ergonomics, about the chair, about the mouses, about the keyboards, about the headset. It's all that matters. So they're happy to spend a little extra for that little comfiness.
So are we at the stage already where we are playing countries against countries? Are we going to get to the Olympics one day? Like, where's this going to take us?
Oh yeah. So actually, I don't know. So this is before COVID. I don't know if has been any changes, but it's officially in the Asian Games and medal sports. So it's in 2022. The Asian Games that's going to be held in China. It's already official medal sports. Esports is, and as a pilot, they already did in 2018 when it happened. I think it was in Indonesia. So they have about a couple of esports, games. So one was soccer, and there were a couple more, and they actually already did the pilot tournament. And actually, Japan won the soccer match, the soccer game, and there are other titles. And that was the latest news that I heard. This was before COVID, but that's 2022, so that's fixed. And we have conversation going on from the IOC about esports. So IOC started having a formal forum on esports. I think it was from 2018, and it happened on a regular basis. And it was it was pretty a big news for us, because IOC, they're the sports guys. Why would they even consider esports, and have a forum on a regular basis, right?
So those of us who don't know what IOC is, what's IOC?
Oh, so it's the International Olympic Committee. So
okay, yeah.
Sorry about that. Yeah.
No, that's all right. I was like, I just don't know this cool term. Oh wow. So esports it's already up there. I'm behind. I'm not following this. Yeah.
It is. So the rumor was that, not the Tokyo Olympic, but I mean, unfortunately, but the next, Paris Olympic, or even the next one.
Yeah.
The rumor says there's a chance that esports might be a part of it, but that was just a rumor. It's nothing confirmed yet. But there is this atmosphere around esports that that may be a possibility. But honestly, that's information before COVID. I don't know what happened afterwards, though.
But that's part of what you do. You're advocating for esports to be taken seriously and to be part of things like the Olympics. So that's fantastic.
Right. So, that's exactly what you said. I'm telling the so-called the grown-up professionals, the business people, that this is something serious, and this didn't happen overnight. It has a solid history, and there's a reason why there are a lot of young generation who's very passionate about, and they are taking as their career, believe it or not. And some countries are very advanced. Some countries are starting. Some countries have a very large market. Some countries are starting, but it's growing. And I don't see this is going to stop at all. And especially with this pandemic going on, we clearly saw that one of the the only sustaining business was this space, gaming and esports. So.
Yeah, completely. I suppose it's one of the only sports out there at the moment that hasn't been disrupted in some form, because you can do it from anywhere at any time and by yourself. So that, I guess, kind of leads me on to, there will be some countries that just have better connections. So they're going to lead the way. How is it going to be fair? Because I mean, if you have a football, you can go out and you can practice day and night and get good. But if your internet or your speed just isn't up to it, how are they going to get around that?
So in a professional setup, that's all controlled.
But I'm a kid. I'm a kid, and I really want to get professional. If I'm 10 and someone gives me a football, I'm outside all day until I get really good, and I might make it to the soccer leagues or whatever. But if I've got a computer, which most kids do now, and I'm playing games, but I just don't have the internet connection, how am I going to be able to compete? How am I going to get to that level?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. So one thing, there's actually business based on that. So that was what happened in the 90s in Korea. So that's when about this net PC was getting more popular, and that was about the time when this online game, like there was a huge hit, and not every people has computers in their household, and so what happened is that some people start a facility business. So and simply put, as a net cafe but dedicated for gaming and
Gotcha.
esports. So you just to give you an idea, you have rows of computers, high spec computers with perfect internet connection, and within that computer you have all the games that you want to play. And kids can go after school, just go there. If there's any seat open, you go sit there and play as much as you want, and you pay by the hour that you play. And it's not even expensive. It's like back then it was like $2 an hour, around the time around that, so like for us after school, we just get her up with our friends, and take a round or two or three or four before going for dinner, and that's how we really associate and get to play more and get to be better, and with your peers. And this is called PC Bang, by the way. It's an established business now, and places like Korea or China had this model from as early as the late 90s. But in Japan, this business is taking off also lately, and we also have this over in Europe, and also some places in the States as well. I don't know how it's in Australia. I haven't been there recently, so I need to go check. But the point is that there is a need for this facility business, as you said.
Well, I know that Pentanet, which is one of the internet providers here in Perth,
Mhm.
they've got a big push on things like esports. I know one of their ambassadors is very big behind esports, so I wouldn't be surprised if we don't already have something like that in
Yeah.
place here. So that sounds like a great idea and a great way to get everyone involved. But it's just not the same as a football. You don't just get handed a football which can be handed down to people. It's still got an entry point that will be harder for some, but it's great that it's so accessible for so many now.
Well, yeah, there's that, but nowadays, so the esports, like, let's say 1.0 was with PCs, computers, but nowadays it's not with PCs, with smartphones. So you can play all these games with your phone if you have a phone, by the way. Yeah, and actually, so even it's the same game title, you can play with multi-platform, meaning that you can play either with your smartphone or with your console or with your PC, or and you can play the same game. So it's as long as you have some kind of device, and as long as your parents let you have some kind of device, you can play something, and you have the internet connection with that.
Mm. Oh, and I mean, kids, our niece, if she picks up a phone, she knows what to do with it within 5 minutes. She's playing a new game. I'm like, don't know how you did that.
It's so natural to them nowadays, right?
Oh, isn't it? They know what they're doing. So, the Demystifying Esports, the book that you have written, who is that written for? Who would enjoy that?
Yeah, so it's for my mother-in-law, for my parents' generation, who had little or no gaming experience. So the idea was that, a little bit of background, as a esports business consultant, I've faced a lot of clients, and the frustration that I've had was that every time we did a pitch, a lot of the time we got turned down by the top of the letter, but not because of the business prospect, just because they don't understand what it is, and it was really hard to explain from zero base. And, it also consumed a lot of our time just to explain, okay, this is game, there's this part, and this is why it's interesting, just trying to engage that one by one as a client. It takes a lot of time, and it was very frustrating. But then, then I saw my kids, and my mother-in-law had this episode that my younger son played too much, and my mother-in-law got so pissed. So one day she took her scissors out and cut the charging cable of my younger son's Nintendo. Oh, so that happened, actually. So it was and then, okay, wait a second, I got to do something about it. So this is I took then that was the point I approached it, that maybe this is not a business problem, this is more of a generational gap going on. So that's what I wanted when I got really serious about it. And though the way I wanted to tell the story was, I don't know if you know about Anthony Bourdain. He's a television celebrity before, very famous chef, but his book called The Kitchen Confidential, which is one of my favorite. So that I really love that book, because he tells all the story as a chef, what happens behind the kitchen. And after reading that book, I mean, I know nothing about cooking, but I get to know what's happening behind the kitchen, right? So it was so much fun, even if I don't cook. So
Yeah.
I, I wanted to write a Kitchen Confidential, but an esports version of it. And I happened to grow up in Korea, and I happened to saw how esports took off in the 90s. And back in those days, nobody knew this was going to be this big, and nobody called it esports. It was just some popular game that everybody played, and I also played. And there was a series of events that really took us as bigger as an industry. And and so I try to lay that down sequentially, so that my parents' generation or my mother-in-law could understand that there's an actual history behind this, and this is not just a buzzword or just like a game addiction. There's actually a lot of industry and a lot of people, a lot of stakeholders behind this, and it's part of the culture in some countries.
Oh, it's very intricate. I mean, just our quick chat tonight, I can see how many layers there are and how many people, whether they're playing or not, are actually involved. It's big
Yeah.
business.
Yeah, totally. And if you think about not only about the playing side, but also like the sponsorship, all the marketing opportunities, and given that it's growing so fast, there's a lot of investment opportunities as well. Like the team, there are a lot of venture capitals behind it, and new business, new monetization opportunity with games, and there's a lot of mashup between games and like say, I don't like idols, for example. Like it's all this mashup with IPs, and there's bottom line is to me it's a gold mine of business. So
Oh yeah, and
yeah.
with AR and VR now,
Oh
like
yeah.
it's a whole other world.
Mm.
It's
Absolutely.
it's a little bit sci-fi. It's kind of the movies that we watched growing up are now coming to life.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you've seen that the Ready Player One, the movie.
Yes,
Yeah.
read the book as well. The book was fantastic. Like yeah, it's quite scary. I love it, but it's
Yeah.
yeah. If anyone's read Ready Player One or seen the movie, that's not maybe where I want the world to go down to. But yeah, it's
I,
intense.
yeah, it is intense. It's pretty different. I mean, we had Matrix too, right? So
Yeah. Are we real? I don't know.
red pill, blue pill.
Oh my god, so good. So demystifying esports is basically for people like me who have got absolutely no idea, and our parents' generation who really they're a bit kind of scared and kind of anti games, which I think is a lot of people. We think everyone's going to have square eyes and not set foot outside, which is a concern, I guess, as well. So yeah, I have put a link to your book. It's available on Amazon down in the show notes and on the live here today as well. So if anyone's interested, go and check it out. I've had a good look through it and it looks fantastic. So thank you so much, Baro.
No, thank you, Megan.
Now, how can everyone get in touch with you if they've got more questions? Because I'm sure I haven't asked you nearly enough. If people are probably thinking, I need to know more. How can they get in touch with you, and how can they follow along on your journey and connect in with you?
Absolutely. So I'm active on my LinkedIn. So just look me up on LinkedIn, and feel free to make a connection, and just feel free to reach me out there, or just shoot me an email, demystifyingesports@gmail.com. That's where you can reach me. I'm also on Instagram and Twitter, but LinkedIn is my primary. So anywhere that you feel comfortable, and feel free to just give me a shout out.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Baro. I really enjoyed this chat. It was brilliant.
Likewise. Thank you very much, Megan. Thanks for having me.